Well, we interrupt this breaking news with breaking news. Uh, we're sitting here putting this episode together here on the 1st of December, and this evening, Tamiya blew the lid off their newest all-new 124 scale vehicle. And so, rather than having it roll into next week, we're going to go ahead and just sort of chuck this in here all unprofessionally at the beginning. So what the kit that Tamiya is doing is the 124 scale McLaren Senna. This is the new hyper car from McLaren. Now there is a more hyper version of that called the McLaren GTR LM, of which 5 were made. It is a road going version of the Senna GTR, which is a track only car. The regular Senna is a road car, despite all of its craziness. It is, I think, it fits into one of 3 categories, depending on where you stand with McLarens. Either it's the ugliest car on the face of the planet, and there's no arguing about it no matter what. It's the most desirable car on the face of the planet, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or if you're a McLaren fan, this may not have been the McLaren you necessarily wanted to see in a plastic kit first. It's certainly something that we're very excited to see. And that's probably where I fit in on this. The Senna is kind of an ugly car, but it is a super, super cool car with all the technology and the active rear wing and everything like that. So getting a model kit of it is pretty awesome. I know, at least with my friends, my stance on this is I don't really care what comes out of this kit. Otherwise, if they do a clear one or if they do a McLaren Senna GTR next, or because making a GTR LM at that point should really just be taking the road wheels out of the Senna and putting them onto the race car. But at any rate, no matter what they decide to do with that, my personal preference was if they've Tamiya were to do another McLaren, they would go back and redo the F1. And I don't mean like the wings and F1, I mean like the car F1, the first McLaren road car that Fujimi did, because that thing is a bucket of meh at best. A lot of it's just not a very inspiring kit to begin with this paint cup engine tray and the way they have it broken down. And then you get into the fact that like the fender skirts are weirdly proportioned, and it's not really that good of a kit. It is certainly one of Fujimi's worst kits when it comes to the, hey, we're going to make a race car and a road car out of this, so the compromises are going to be wild about that. I mean, the race car is worse than the road car is. It is what it is, and I just, if Tommy wished to do a McLaren that would really make me happy, it would be that one, because I have a 12C, the Super kit, which you can see right there at the bottom. Yeah, I know you can't see what it says, but it's the Hobby Design Super Detail Kit, which is basically the forerunner to the Alpha kits. It's a complete total 124 scale multimedia kit, includes the engine and everything. And then Revell did the 520, or the 540 rather, which I have PE and stuff to turn into a 520 if I want to do the down market version. There's no 675, the current 675, or 720, excuse me. There's no current 720. There is a resin version of the 720. What am I trying to think here? So there's a resin 720. There's no current. There was no 675. The car between the 520 and the 540 and the 720. That would be nice to have, that middle thing. I'm okay with just having resin 720, and I think we've talked about it before. Hobby Design is through Alpha Models is going to do the new 675 LT, which is based off the 720. As well as the P1 and a P1 GTR LM, which is the road-going version of the race car P1. A lot of people would like to see a plastic P1, and I don't argue with that necessarily, but within my personal point of view, having a resin kit of that is perfectly fine. I mean, we're going to get around to building the plastic one anyway, so why not have a resin one? But all that being said, I really would, I really love that F1. Because with the F1 and that pre-720 675, there would be all the McLarens in kit form, and that would be super, or resin form. That would be super awesome to be able to build all of the McLaren road cars. We're going to show you a runner here. This is the engine runner along with the suspension runner. It does have a full engine in it, or at least the approximation of a full engine in it. And I wanted to show you this runner mainly because this makes no sense. This is another car like the Acura NSX, where there is a engine inside of it, or the Honda NSX, depending on what part of the country you live in. Uh, that kit has an engine in it, but you never see anything more than the very, very top part of the intake. If you go try to Google images of the McLaren Senna engine, you're first of all, you're going to get a lot of pictures of Ayrton Senna's engine out of his F1 car. But the other pictures you're going to get are the view of the engine through the glass window in the top of the cars. You know, McLarens are mid-engine, rear-engine vehicles, and they have a glass window in the back, and that's, you know, that's your view of the engine for the most part. The McLaren Senna is much like a Bugatti Veyron, or any of the subsequent, the Chiron or Chiron, or however you pronounce that, where you have to take the thing to McLaren to get it serviced. You, as a car owner, do not have the tools or the wherewithal. Apparently, everything in my teenage daughter's room just fell down, to take the car apart. You cannot take the rear bodywork off the car. I mean, I'm sure as a enterprising owner, you could. Then you probably avoid the warranty. They come take your car, but it's much like the Bugattis. You can't take as a car owner in your garage. You aren't changing the oil. You aren't dipsticking the transmission. You know, you're not doing any of that stuff. And the McLaren's the same way. So with this kit, not being able to remove the bodywork off the back of the kit, it falls into the Ford GT, right? The Ford GT, the Tamiya road car, only has a 4-piece engine that's the very top of it that you see through the rear window. Now, the Ford GT, you can get into your engine a little bit easier, but then you look at the Revell race car, and it's got a 14-piece engine that once you glue the car, two halves of the car together, you never can see again. And so there's a lot of money being put into the engine tooling here. Okay, when you look at the price of the kit, which we'll talk about here in a half a second, but it's unnecessary. A little bit of an engine top would have covered it, because the whole underside of the car is an aero plate, so you can't see the bottom of the engine. You can't see anything in the engine other than the top of it when you look in the rear window in 1/24 scale. And so why? Because I know a lot of people are going to stress out about what color should it be, and ooh, look at my exhaust staining, and you're never going to see it. The price of this kit, the retail price, the suggested retail price is $73. I'm seeing pre-orders already this evening, or well, technically tomorrow morning at this point, but we're seeing pre-orders of this around $62, $63. There's no pre-order for it in Japan right now because it's going to come out in the United States and North America first, Europe and Asia second. I mean, it'll be a few days behind probably. And so Japan's price is probably going to be in the 50s, and then you add shipping to it, so it's going to end up being the same pretty much as this US pre-order, somewhere in the $62 price range. And that will be the most expensive model kit that Tamiya has made since the Lexus LFA. The Lexus LFA currently, to this day, still holds the most expensive end cap yen price of any Tamiya car kit they've ever done that wasn't big scale or pre-assembled. So when current Tamiya kits have been running in the mid 40s to upper 50s in the United States, and low 30s in Japan, it does make you kind of wonder. The price of this kit is more because of the number of parts involved. You assemble this kit on a space frame off of the chassis, center monocoque, the way you would the Enzo FXX and the LaFerrari and the FXXK. It assembles very much like that, where all of the body parts are separate pieces and you glue them together to get this complex shape. A little bit like the TS050, although obviously the Le Mans car doesn't have an engine in it. And you understand why the price is a little bit higher, because the more pieces of plastic there are, the more the model costs, because every single piece of plastic costs X amount of money in a mold. And so there's $5 of this kit price, maybe a little bit more, is tied up in the engine that you're never going to see. I don't like the Acura. The Acura's engine is a bad investment in my personal point of view, because they didn't include any kind of PE with it, and a lot of the mesh is, hey, let's put a decal on a clear piece. That chicanery that Aoshima rather did with the original Lamborghini Aventador, the original Aventador, which had, you know, decals for the mesh, and made you go buy the upgrade kit because decals on mesh look like ass. So I'm kind of wondering where the corners got cut in this to see like what they could have done differently had they not wasted all that money on an engine that you're never going to see again. You know, it's different with the Group C cars. The Group C cars had engines in them, but the whole back half of the Group C cars lift off if you don't glue them on. You know, the DTM race cars from the 1990s, they have full engines, but the front of the car lifts off. When you start getting into these modern cars, I'm okay with them being curbside with just the representation of the top of the engine, because that's literally all the more of it you could ever see once the model's assembled. Doing the rest of it is nice. Like, hey, cool, I built an engine. Awesome. But then it goes away. You could literally just throw this engine together, not even paint it, and just paint the very, very top part of it, so that what you saw through the window was detailed, and that could literally be the assembly for this, and that's, to me, a waste of time and money. Like, I'll build the engine, I'll love every minute of it because it's a Tamiya kit, and that's what you do when you build a Tamiya kit, is you just enjoy yourself. But I gotta say, I just don't know what Wolf. I'd be very interested to see, like, what's like. Oh man, they really did this way, man. If they had an extra $1,000, I probably could have told this a little bit differently. And so for release date, we're looking at January 20th, 2021 here in the United States, North America, and then probably somewhere in the following week or beginning of February for different European countries. It all depends on how things go. Here in the United States, we're very fortunate because we have a major Tamiya office out there in California, Tamiya USA, of course, and that's what distributes partially into Canada, although Canada can also import directly from Tamiya Japan, from what I've talked to from various hobby shop guys. But be that as it may, Tamiya's European office is just a conglomerate of dealers that do Tamiya's stuff. It's not an actual physical building with people in it like it is here in the United States, and therefore European distribution can be a little hit and miss, depending on like who ordered first and and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's it. New McLaren Senna Hyper Super Duper car is your spring 2021 new tool Tamiya kit. So that was some news that I don't think anyone outside of the realm of people who know stuff that are not allowed to talk about it saw coming, which is great. I always enjoy a good Tamiya surprise. And anyway, back to the regular episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is November 30th, 2020, and yes, you have wasted another perfectly good month listening to me blather on about model cars. So we have a few announcements from Salvino's JR, specifically their December kit and their all-new tool announcement, or, well, 75% new tool announcement. I'm still going to carry that generic one-size-fits-all chassis that they use on their new tool kits, but it is a new tool kit from Salvino's. It is not a monogram fitment or new body for monogram kit. It is their own tooling, as well as, of course, the last of the kits for the month of November, as we clean up the month, as it were. So, going over to Salvino for those new kits, their December kit that we're going to be looking for is another of the old monogram 124 scale kits, and this is back to the Aero body, or the Aero Coupe version of the Monte Carlo. This represents the Junior Johnson Racing, as driven by Darrell Waltrip, Budweiser sponsored. So somehow, I guess we're doing adult collectibles here, and we can get around the fact that this has beer on it. Even though that doesn't seem to apply to international models, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, so there's another reissue from them with a new livery. It'd be interesting to see how they handle the decals on this, because while it's not readily apparent when you just sort of glance at the car, every part of the red on this car has a thin red pinstripe that goes along with it. So it's not a matter of just like, oh, throw the words and the letters on there and the numbers and call it a day and paint the car in a two-tone, or just provide the red for the lower part of the car. They're going to have to provide the outline pinstripe for the entire hood, roof, trunk, as well as that little dance that it does around the opera window on the side of the car. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Again, if I was looking at this from a decal design perspective, I would probably, try to include the bottom cars, the bottom decals rather, for the red striping, and then give you a pinstripe for the top of the car and have you paint the two-tone yourself. I think that'll probably be the easiest way, rather than trying to provide great big red panel decals. Perhaps give you a decal for the front ahead of the hood, because the hood itself and the sort of what will be the scuttle panel on a real car, but obviously it's just a piece of sheet metal on a NASCAR kit, that's also red, but it's very easy to just be like, well, paint, the windshield pillars down onto that scuttle panel red, paint the hood red, and then we give the front edge of that as red too. Maybe the whole hood in general. Again, it remains to be seen. It's a little more thought involved just because of that red pinstriping decal that surrounds the car. So I'm sure they'll figure it out and come up with something. As well as, again, I said their new tool, or mostly new tool, kit, and is a new tool of their own tooling, and that is this, the 1973 Dodge Charger, Richard Petty sponsored car from the We Can't Call It the Daytona 500 Daytona 500. So this should, at least in theory, be the best assembled, best fitting version of their new tooling, because the reason why the chassis was really, really weird in that Oldsmobile, with it having sort of a K-frame front suspension and the incorrect truck suspension for the rear end, was the fact that the chassis was originally designed to go underneath this project. The 73 Dodge Charger, or there's going to be a bunch of Dodge Chargers of various years, but this one, 73, to start with. Those were the original ideas. We're going to do these early Chargers and go from there, and that's why the chassis was designed to be a Chrysler primary chassis, which gives you the weird parts underneath of a GM product. So theoretically, the fit, all the parts and everything like that should be mostly matched up with this. They are saying on initial speculation that this will be a February release, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that as time goes along, but yeah, that will be their next sort of self-contained new tool, rather than creating parts for the existing monogram kits. So that should be interesting. We'll see where exactly that leads as time goes along, and there's probably several releases with the Charger, other liveries. Obviously, again, they want to do other years, 71, 72 as well. So yeah, we'll see where things are. I didn't look at my list before I started this video. I just want to make sure there's no kit announcements that I'm forgetting. We covered all of those last video, so no. Okay, cool. Just make sure. So that takes us to the kit releases this week, and we have the last of the domestic releases. So that at Salvino, since we've been talking about them, we'll just stick with those guys for one more second here, and that is the release of the Blue Max Racing, Tim Richmond-driven Old Milwaukee 1983 Pontiac Le Mans. So this again is that newly tooled body for the old monogram kit. They did the Hardee's car first. This was the follow-up release for November, and so far I don't think I've heard any complaining about meatballs on the decals. So hopefully the decals match the box art on this one. And yeah, I mean, it's just a new livery of the kit that came out last month. So, and of course, Mike's Decals had it first, and that sort of blank generic boxing as well. So that's out there for folks that wanted to buy a kit with decals included. And we'll go over to round two, their last releases for the month of November, or really their only releases for the month of November that we hadn't already talked about are these two. First up, you got this, the 2006 Nissan 350Z. Don't want to talk about this yet. Actually, I was talking to a friend about this kit, and he said the only sort of redeeming quality that this model kit has is it is the only 1/25th scale engine for a Nissan 350Z. It's also really the only engine, period, out of a 350Z, as none of the other 350Z kits that exist from Aoshima, from Tamiya, have engines. Both of those kits are curbside. This is the only one that I know of, at least, that has an engine or any part of an engine. This actually has like a full put it in the chassis kind of engine, rather than just being an engine topper like a lot of Japanese kits. It's an engine swap. I don't know necessarily that I'm paying $25, $30 for a engine swap, but if you wanted to maybe, I don't know, cast these, it's obviously the parts are back available. Not that this kit was terribly hard to find. There have been a few of them on eBay ever since I've been looking to see if this kit had been released, so it wasn't the hardest thing in the world to get. It's got parts of a veil side body kit. I don't know what in the world is going on with the side panels on this car. As far as the over fenders go, they are not a veil side body kit. They are not a body kit of anything. I guess it kind of sort of represents the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift car. I guess that is what this kit series was based on when it came out in the mid-2000s. So it's got new decals, because obviously you can't make it look exactly like the movie car because they don't have the licensing for that. And it falls into the rest of these weird 1/25th scale, or otherwise wrong scale, if you will, import cars that AMT did. Or I should really Racing Champions did, because Racing Champions owned the company at the time. And then the other they released, and this is sort of an oddball when you really get down to think about it, is this, the 1778 Volkswagen Golf GTI. And the reason why this is weird is, well, A, it's not the actual AMT kit. The AMT kit was a Volkswagen Rabbit, marketed as such, builds as such, and is an American car. The optional parts for the 1978 Volkswagen Rabbit are a drag racing car. This is the old SE kit. This is factory stock, even if it does give you a whole bunch of woody decals and it's molded in 3 different colors and all this fancy stuff that's on the box art, trying to entice you into buying it. It is not the old Lesney era annual kit. It is a Italian kit from Italeri, basically. And that does give you a little bit of window into this. Remember, Italeri is providing them with a bunch of truck kits and trailer kits at this point. They, the Peterbilt and the 40-foot container and all those other things. So this is basically Italeri giving them a car kit at this point. I don't know what that says about where or what condition or in its existence at all of the actual AMT Rabbit, which would be based on the Sirocco, which they did reissue. So you think that at least pieces of it still exist. I don't know what to say otherwise. Molded in 3 colors, so yeah, it comes molded in that weird shade of yellow. And let's see here, what else with the other 2 colors? It's like gray and black. So interior and chassis are the other 2 colors involved there. So yeah, I mean, it does come with U.S. bumpers. I'm sure that there are Rabbit decals in there, maybe, but a Golf GTI is the European designation for this car. We did not get well, I guess we did get technically Golf GTIs in the United States, but not in 1978. They didn't come until around 1981 when they had the snowflake wheels and the restyled front end with the square headlights. And yeah, so this is not an actual vehicle we got here in the United States, but hey, let's all pretend it is, because licensing agreement or something, whatever the actual answer to that question might really be. And then we'll go overseas to Japan, where we have several Hasegawa releases, as well as a few Aoshima ones as well. Aoshima ones are just reissues. Say that 3 times fast. So first up, you have this, the 2012 Subaru BRZ. This builds as the just factory stock BRZ without all the STI concept stuff. It is available in left-hand drive, right-hand drive shown on the box art, but there is a left-hand drive kit in there. Otherwise, this kit's the same kit as it's sort of always been ever since it was released back in 2013. Reissue of the 1998 Toyota Chaser in the JZX 100 format. Kit number 16 of the model car lineup, so this one's been reissued a few times at this point. And then the last one from Aoshima is this, the 99 Nissan Silvia S15. So that's been actually released, I believe, twice since it's been boxed into the model car lineup. So just a shelf restock there as well. One thing I forgot when glancing at this is this wheel set from Fujimi. This was supposed to come out in February of 2020. Don't know where it's been. Everything else that they've released that was supposed to come out has more or less come out when it was supposed to. But this wheel set, completely totally forgotten about. But yeah, now it is. So this is a set of 14-inch work equips. And yeah, I mean, it's a wheel set, so you know what to expect there. Wheels, tires, and probably the equip decals for the center lugs. But other than that, yeah, I don't know what the delay of this was or why it just magically showed up in the end of November, but nonetheless, if you're waiting on that patiently for the last 9 months, now it is available for you to purchase. And that'll take us, again, to Hasegawa to wrap up this video. And we've got the last of the November releases from Hasegawa's big fall announcement. First up, you have this reissue of their Toyota Celica 1600 GT race car kit in a 1973 Macau Grand Prix livery. So this represents the 2nd place finishing car from the 1973 Macau Grand Prix. This driver would win the 74 and 75 Grand Prix. The 1973 Grand Prix also won by a Toyota Celica, not this one. This is another one of those weird Hasegawa choices where they picked a car that didn't actually win the race, even though they have the model that won the race. So, yeah. I mean, nominally speaking, this is the most famous driver of that era, but yeah, it's not the winning car. I'm cool with that at the same time because, again, there's history with the driver here. And, yeah, just a straight reissue, new decals, and that's pretty much it. It's molded in white, not in yellow, thank goodness. And, not really too much else to say about that because they've done the 1600 GT as a race car before, so just straight decals on that. And then we have this release, which is a significantly modified reissue. It's a Nissan Bluebird four-door SSR in the 1988 All Japan Rally. Now, this is your championship car for the year. They won the championship in All Japan, which is literally what it sounds like, All Japan. So it's only in Japan Rally Series that ran in what would typically be considered a Group C classification at the time. And this car specifically represents the third rally, not third stage, but the third rally of the year, and it is the Tour de Shikoku, and that is an island, one of the biggest. I think it's the second biggest island after Okinawa in Japan. A little bit of Wikipedia for you there, guys. The decals are kind of interesting in the sense that they replicate pretty much this whole car except the wraparound portion of the front bumper, which kind of makes sense because that's a complicated compound curve, and also the rear door handles, which seems like it wouldn't be a hard problem, but for whatever reason they chose to sort of go around that. Now there is a decal that goes across the rear of the doors that nominally would probably cover the rear door handle, but on this kit, like so many of the new Hasegawa releases, so many of the parts are separate to make them easier to paint. The trim and the door handles and all these things that would normally be molded into a model kit are all separate, which is fantastic if you want to build this thing factory stock, because the door handles on almost all of these are black no matter what color the car is. So painting them black and gluing them on after you've painted the car is really, really easy compared to masking it off and then painting the door handles black and hoping you don't jack the paint job up in the process. In this, I think the door handle fits completely underneath the stripe of the decal. I think. It's hard to tell. I don't actually have this in hand yet. I'm waiting till Christmas rush dies down to ship this stuff over. But they have you mixing the color blue to match the decals for that lower front bumper portion and for those door handles. And it gives you the specific shade of blue and then tells you to add drops of white to it until it matches. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of fun to see how well that works. New parts wise, there are new wheels involved, new tires. There's a rally computer. They call it a case for it, but really it's the sun shield for it, so the navigator can read it. And then there's also some underplates in this that I believe are slightly different than the underplates that came in the street version of this. And yeah, it's a very cool piece. I don't think they built this whole model series just to do this one specific rally car, but it's very interesting to see this pop into your collection. Because if you would have told you at the beginning of like 2019, hey, by the end of 2020, you're going to have a very weirdly, oddly specific Japanese rally car you're going to be able to build, you probably would have just sort of, well, what? Okay, I mean, I guess. The only other thing I can think of that really fits into this, other than some of the old Hasegawa, what were they called? I have one of them somewhere around here. The Asian Pacific Rally Championship, which is more of a South Asia rally series more than it is a specifically Japan one. The Rally Japan Subaru Imprezas are really the only Japanese specific rally things out there. There's probably some decals floating around, for All Japan liveries. Or not All Japan liveries, but for Japan rally liveries from the mid 2000s when it ran there as part of the World Rally Championship. But yeah, it's very interesting. Again, just to sort of have this as an odd conversation piece. And then last but not least is another rally car, and this is a really, really modified reissue, and that is the 82,000 Lakes Rally's Mitsubishi Lancer EX 2000 Turbo. So yes, this is the release of the kit that is the exact same kit that BMAX New Hobbies just released 2 months ago. It is the exact same car, the exact same livery, the exact same drivers, the exact same third place finishing car. I say all that to say this. There's new bumpers, new wheels, new tires, new chassis pieces. The interior is gutted for the actual racing. Roll cage has been added. All of these parts have been put into this to convert it from a street car. The last time we saw this was the 1800 turbo street version, to turn it into exactly the same rally car that Nunu did. I know this is the best finishing version of this car in 1982. But I can't believe it didn't run anywhere else. Where you just sort of go, okay, they've covered that car. We're going to give you the Monte Carlo version. We're going to give you the Finland version. So sit here and look at my wall of Hasegawa rally cars. We're going to give you the Acropolis version. We're going to give you the Safari version, the Swedish version. Like they have licensing to so many rallies. To do the exact same thing again just seems a little odd. I know there will be people who will buy this in Japan specifically to steal the left-hand drive dashboard out of it to convert the street car. So there's that option. And there will be people that are, especially in Japan, that are very much Hasegawa fans who would buy this kit over the new kit, regardless of which kit existed first and came out in what order. So it is out there if you're interested in it, and much like the new kit, this does come, not come with, but has available for sale rather, this detail up etching set, which is a much less inclusive version of the new set. It has pretty much the same basic parts with some of the footrests and the vents and the disc brake details, tow hooks, and all the seatbelt material as well. I assume the seatbelt material itself is in the kit. Probably most of the rally kits do come with a swath of little seatbelt material, but it doesn't include antennas. It doesn't, which well, again may be in the kit, and it doesn't include, a lot of the stuff that you sort of expect out of a new BMAX detail upset. It's just straight PE, and it's not a very big PE set when you compare the two. So yeah, again, it's a PE set for a car that represents something that already exists. So it's kind of hard to get all, rah-rah about that because it's kind of weird. We've seen a few instances in the 6 years that I've been doing this show where two competing model companies have announced the same project, and one will usually bow out. I don't know how in Japan that's decided. Now, granted, Nunu is a company on Macau. It's a Chinese company, technically. So it's not something where they probably care. They probably think they have their own market within Japan and other places that Hasegawa exports their kits to that may, and probably in reality does supersede the distribution network of Nunu, but that 2 month head start that Nunu has, I kind of think that if you really, really, really wanted to build this specific car because it is the one podiuming version of the Mitsubishi Lancer from 1982, you already own one. I know I do. So I didn't buy this because I don't need two of the same thing, the exact same thing. And as of right now, there has not been any kind of aftermarket support for the Lancers that BMAX and Nunu have done. You have the 81, I guess it is, 1800, the Advan car, and then you have this 82, and there's not been any announcements. And usually Riley decals are announced like 2, 3, 4, 5 months in advance in some cases, and I've not seen any support for those cars at all. The model companies seem to have taken the most popular versions or the most reasonable versions and claimed them for themselves and not left anything really over for the Reges of the world. So, yeah, I mean, I wish Hasegawa all the luck. They're on a roll right now with new tools, new kits, or I should say new tools, and then significantly modified versions of the other new tools. They've been just, kicking the llama's ass, as it were, since about 2007, and I do not want to see that like deflated in any way. And this, this, this merging of two projects of the same thing just existentially worry me. I hope they sell enough of this that conversion and the whole project as a whole ends up making sense to them, because I'd really hate to see something silly like, hey, we decided to pick the same thing as somebody else decided to do, and then we were stubborn and hard-headed about it and proceeded to do the project anyway, even though we were the second one to deliver the model kit to the market, doesn't end up doing something. Right now, if there's any advantage to 2020 and having everyone locked in their houses and sort of forced to take up hobbies that are, not as expensive as being outside hobbies, is that most of the hobby shops and retailers and mail order and all of those things are just really doing a lot of business, and the model companies obviously because of that are doing a lot of business. I heard something recently where Airfix turned a profit for the first time in a decade, and that was like utterly shocking to the guys at Hornby because they didn't expect it to. Airfix has lost money every year since Hornby's owned it, and this year in 2020 they've actually turned a six-figure profit. So yeah, I mean, obviously, if coronavirus can save Airfix, it must be doing interesting things for the rest of the hobby market as well. And just hate to see any kind of like hiccup in that, just because of we're gonna force this thing out there. So maybe it's all worrying for nothing. It's personal greed, right? I just want to keep reissuing race cars, keep making new tools, make new tools of things that can be made into race cars. Must stay on the path. Must stay on the path. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed that one. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. That was, of course, over the weekend. And yeah, we plunge on into December. Depending on the upload order, you may have already seen a December compilation video, or a December compilation video will be coming, and we'll head on towards the end of the year and into the big part of the holiday season. We'll see you guys on the other side.